Welcome to Powering the Future Within, the podcast where we explore the breakthroughs shaping the future of MedTech. I'm Omari, the CEO of Resonant Link Medical. Each episode, we speak with a leader who is driving the next wave of medical innovation, advancing technologies that are smarter, less invasive, and more connected than ever before. This is where the future of health takes shape. Let's dive in. Today, I'm excited to welcome Murielle Thinard McLane to the show. Murielle is the president and managing partner of Intuitive Ventures, the strategic venture arm of Intuitive Surgical. Murielle partners with companies reimagining the future of minimally invasive care. She brings deep leadership experience across medical technology, biotech, life science tools, and health analytics, and a rare perspective on how innovation actually scales into real clinical impact. Murielle, welcome to Powering the Future Within.
Thank you for having me, Omari. Glad to be here.
It's a true pleasure. And so maybe to start with, you have a very interesting global background, growing up in France before building your career in the United States. Tell us about that. And do you notice any of your background shaping how you approach people or problems, even in subtle ways?
So yes, I came in 30 years ago. I guess I'm a poster child of the American dream. Came here to complete my graduate school, worked on Wall Street before transitioning into healthcare, where I wanted to make an impact and a difference. And been working in that ecosystem for the past 20 years, as you mentioned, across a variety of verticals, from starting at United Health Group in disease management to biotech and biopharma, Genentech and Novartis, to going into seeing and overseeing the plumbing of healthcare and with McKesson, and the practice management portion of it, as I was part of the team that acquired US Oncology and built a specialty business, to finally, as going into the life science tools, becoming the CEO of Ontera and creating Numa, and then finally joining Intuitive Ventures 3 years ago. My global experience really helped me when I'm looking at deals and working with CEOs that are European. I think I have, it helps me translate from a cultural standpoint, and really crossing the bridge between how a European CEO thinks and an American CEO thinks, and being able to really help European team think about the US market. So that's where I would say my global view or my global upbringing has helped a bit.
Right. And it's interesting. You've worked across so many different verticals, and now you're more squarely focused on medical technology through venture capital. But before Intuitive Ventures, as you mentioned, you spent time as an operator, including serving as a CEO in companies in the life science tools and analytics space. So I'm curious about how you would compare medical technology in terms of how you're looking at it now versus some of your other experiences.
So see, MedTech is fascinating. It is a game that is really complex because you have technology, so hardware, software, you have analytics. And so I would say the complexity is as big as in diagnostics. And to some extent, in a way, it requires a multidiscipline team. Slightly different than what I've seen in biotech, where it's really about a compound and the science behind it. So for me, this is a place where I really thrive because I like that complexity in terms of development of product. Now, in terms of having been a CEO before, I have huge empathy towards the people that are leading companies and starting in innovation, particularly in medtech, where it's getting more and more complex and having much longer life cycle than it used to be. It takes about now 11 years for an entrepreneur to start a company all the way through seeing an exit. That's a long time.
Yeah. So you can really put yourself in their shoes and empathize with the situation. And I have to imagine that's something that the founders really enjoy, being able to have that connection.
I certainly hope so. We
Yeah.
can ask them at some later stage.
Let's talk a little bit more about Intuitive Ventures. Really, the name and the brand seems to be getting out there more and more every day. Obviously, everyone knows Intuitive Surgical. It's widely regarded as one of the most successful medical technology stories of all time. So where does Intuitive Ventures fit into the broader journey of Intuitive Surgical?
Well, I would say that I view my role as not a small one. We need to replicate what Intuitive has done in the world of surgery into the world of ventures. So it's not a small feat. We think of ourselves as a different type of strategic venture arm, and we are an ecosystem play. So our role is really to help the overall ecosystem of minimal invasive care, precision treatment in medtech and health tech succeed. And so that's what you'll see when you look at our portfolio and where our interest lies. It is very much about the ecosystem and shaping or helping. I mean, I can't say that I shape the future, but really helping shape the future of where healthcare is going, and particularly medtech.
Yes. And I mean, most people might assume that your focus would be purely on robotics, but when you look at your portfolio and how you evaluate, it seems to really be quite broad in terms of focus truly on minimally invasive care and support of that ecosystem. One of the things that Intuitive did very well was establish itself as a platform technology. Are platform technologies of interest to you? Are there particular types or approaches that if your platform technology is appealing, how do you evaluate platform approaches at Intuitive Ventures?
Yeah, so we like platform. I'll start there. Those are complex. I would say that some investors shy away from those because they take time. They're more complex. But this is where, on the long view, things get to be transformed. So we look at it very positively. Now, more broadly speaking, when we look at the ecosystem, we're looking at where are the big spaces where there's still big unmet medical needs, where also we're looking at technology and how they fit into the physician's workflow. And because that's really, really important. A lot of time, and that's where maybe my operator role come in. It's not only about technology, it's about how do you fit into workflow? How do you help physicians do their job in a world that's being reinvented every day? And what value do you bring? How do payers think about you as well? So when we're looking at platform, we're evaluating all of those and not only the technology and how novel that is. And then to your point on robotics, I would say it is incredibly hard, as you can imagine, for any robotics company to come in and have us as an investor because our bar is extremely high on that front. So we don't shy away from it, but when we evaluate it, is that's where the intuitive surgical experience come into play, where we'll see a lot of I would say that the bar is much higher than probably one would assume.
Yeah, and it must require you walking a very careful balance. And in my experience working on the corporate side, a lot of times you will have physicians or innovators who are working closely with, let's say, Intuitive Surgical, who have technologies or approaches, and they all want to pitch you. So it requires a deft hand and a delicate balance, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. But we welcome all innovations. And if we can be helpful in guiding where does innovation fit, it doesn't mean investing.
Right.
That's our role too. And I would say there are a couple of CEOs that have told me, and entrepreneurs, I should say, that have told me, thank you for directing us to the right type of investors. And thanks to you, I met my lead, because there are ideas where we may not invest, but where we can help you find what's the right place for you.
Right, right. And in that advice, particularly with platform technologies, one of the things that I see quite a bit is that it's a great novel technology, but either the practicality doesn't exist or the application is just being named as we can do anything everywhere. I have to imagine part of what you're doing is giving advice saying, let's focus on a single vertical or application first with the platform to prove it out. Is that a typical conversation you're having with some of these entrepreneurs?
So the ones that are working on platform, absolutely. There's a lot of discussion around focus. Where do you focus your time and energy? What's the value inflection point you're going to get with that? And how do you go sequence a build of a platform that is transformational? To your point, if you're not solving a problem, then what are you doing, right? Um, and so it's that focus is extremely important.
So what are you looking for when you're evaluating potential investor investments in terms of the company and in terms of the team?
So one, like everybody else, we're looking for big market, right? What are the big unmet needs? So in VC jargon, we speak about the TAM, SAM, SOM, and we need those to be quite large. Then the team is really important. We're investing in a technology that's solving a real problem, and a team, absolutely. And then it gets to this third thing, which is how does it going to fit? Who is going to use it? Who are the key stakeholders that are going to buy it? How does it fit in the workflow? Who is going to pay for it? And those are really, really important. And a lot of time, I would say, this is a piece that is lacking in some of the visionary early stage entrepreneurs. They know the unmet need, but they're not really thinking about the workflow and where things fit into the day-to-day operations of a non-key opinion leader, shall we say.
Right, right,
And then obviously the how we pay about it. And then last but not least, how much money is going to be needed for your technology to become commercial is really important for you to think about. And how do you really stage the value creation throughout the life cycle of your company before you get to market?
right. Yeah. And you're making investments generally in kind of the Series A to Series C stage. Is that right?
I don't know what the series are anymore. I would say that. So let me rephrase that as
Yes.
we
Yeah.
tend to invest in, or I would say our sweet spot is there's been some human data. We're sort of in that, uh, there's a concept that seems to work on human all the way to scaling and commercial. So the first in human, pivotal, and post pivotal to scale are the areas where we see ourselves investing often. We do seed from time to time. So we think of ourselves as early investors mostly, but really investing across the life cycle of companies, and depending obviously also on what disease area, and every situation is different.
Right. So a typical scenario would be proof of concept has been established, and it sounds like there's a real practicality that you're applying to the lens you're evaluating, including workflow, which is really interesting. And it really feels like that's a reflection of you serving as a CEO and an operator to really know what is this going to take in the commercial environment, not simply that it's a novel approach.
That is correct. And for me, there's workflow is really important. The other piece around that, and I cannot emphasize is enough, we see sometimes entrepreneurs just thinking about what it would take for an acquisition by
Right.
us, by somebody else. And they're not thinking about their quality system, about scaling when they're designing, what are the unit economics that you're targeting. Those are really, really important. This, if you want a product to go to market, the acquirer will have the same lens as I do, right? Which is what
Yes.
does it take to be successful? And those are sometimes the piece that creates the most value is having a CEO think about that ahead of time, even at early stage. And then the art is when do you incorporate that into your product development roadmap, how you incorporate it, but thinking about it is really important. You're building a product that you want to see going into patients or helping treat patients, I should say, or diagnose patient. And for that to be a reality, it's not only a technology, it needs to be a technology that scales, and it needs to be a technology that people want to adopt and pay for.
Yes. Yeah. And it sounds like part of your enjoyment or satisfaction in your role is truly this interface with the entrepreneur. As you mentioned, sometimes it can take 11 years to get a product to market. So, really being a source, a resource, a support of the entire ecosystem. And yes, of course, you're an investor, so there's that piece too. But it really feels like you get great joy and enjoyment from engaging with the entrepreneur and really helping them.
Yeah, absolutely. I used to do it as a mentor in the past through an organization called Springboard that helped first-time female CEOs. Now it's there's a little bit more at stake. Those are my portfolio companies, but but I do I do love the mentoring part of it and the advising. To be clear, the CEO is in the driver's seat. We're here if and when they need if they need us. And where I would say Intuitive Ventures tends to differentiate itself from other venture firm is that we bring in not only my experience, but actually very experienced people within Intuitive Surgical that can help companies where they need to, from pivotal site selection to doing clinical animal bench data to how you think about your go-to-market model and what type of compensation you need to establish for your sales force. And each of the cases that I mentioned are true cases where Intuitive helped a portfolio company in the past.
Coming in as a formal advisory role, or are you just bringing them informally to give perspective?
Informally.
Yeah, that's fantastic. What a great resource to be able to leverage or hear about from such a successful company in terms of the specifics of what's happening in the marketplace today. It brings a certain level of reality to their situations, I have to imagine.
It does, and we pride ourselves as being able to be a value add investor, a capital plus,
Right.
and we really want to be helpful. It takes a village to be successful, in 11 years, and the CEO role is such a lonely role. The board observers are here to help them be successful. And I would say the one thing that we try to do is, and I got back to we really try to be best in class, is we every year do an NPS survey of our CEO to make sure that we evaluate ourselves on how valuable we are to them as
Yeah.
well, being on the key operational areas where they need help or fundraising or name it. But at the end of the day, being able to see are we doing what we're supposed to do as investors, which is more than just giving capital, but actually also helping them when and only when they need it?
That's great. And it's a good transition and to talk about the board perspective. So you've been in the operator role, you've been a CEO. Sometimes that allows you to give advice side by side. You have this very interesting capability of providing perspective from a super successful large company and pick advisors to help there. But then you also serve as a board observer in a lot of cases. And so, from a board perspective, what are some of the most common strategic or execution challenges you see founders face as they scale?
So every company is different. Every
Yes.
challenge is different, and it depends also, frankly, on the CEO prior experience. Is it this first rodeo? Is that something that the CEO has done a few times? But I would say some of the common things that I see is decision making needs to be fairly quick, and we should not revisit decisions unless there's uh, real reasons for doing it. And then this area of focus that you're talking about. So, really focusing on the long view and what are the key value inflection points along the way, making sure that those are met. And then as you build and you scale, we touched upon it a little before. How are you thinking about your quality management system? How are you thinking about your suppliers and redundancy of suppliers? How are you thinking about the quality that they need to be at? How are you thinking about what this would look like when you're a $200 million top line revenue, $500 top line revenue? And again, not necessarily meaning, hey, be ready to be there tomorrow, but how are you thinking along that journey? And when do you need to pull the trigger on certain of those decisions? The
What's the
when,
roadmap?
what's the roadmap, and how do you execute around it with that long view?
And to that end, it sounds as though for you, you're probably looking at a lot of these companies. And one of the investment criteria, I guess this is the question, is one of the investment criteria that an exit has to come through multiple paths. In other words, you can't just be on a track to be acquired by a strategic, but you also have to have a track to be able to go it alone.
Dual tracks are really important, yes. And I would say I don't know any investors today that are not looking at dual track. I will give you the example of Organox, where we were an investor recently. It was one of the deals we made this year. So we actually were dual tracking it to IPO when Terumo made an offer. But the point is, you want to be able, particularly for your platform, but you want to be able to build a company so that it's self-sustainable, or at least companies that I invest in. We're not investing in widgets that are there to be acquired.
Yeah. Yeah, Organex is a great example. So you're talking about a platform technology that is in the transplant preservation space with a known user. So it's good target, good market, but differentiated technology in that space. So it seems like that one checked all the boxes for you.
We did, yes. And we were, very happy for Terumo to have it as part of their portfolio. I think it's an incredible company and doing so much for those patients.
Right. And it seems like there are some venture funds that are associated with larger companies with strategics that are essentially using their venture arm as a lens into acquisition. But it looks like with Intuitive Ventures, you're really operating as almost a standalone venture arm, with the exception that you're able to leverage these experiences from the intuitive surgical side. Is that a appropriate characterization?
So yes and no, we're not standalone. We fulfill our mission of helping Intuitive look strategically at the long view of the market. Now, it doesn't mean, and so when we invest in areas that we feel are important for the future of MedTech, to your point, that doesn't translate into necessarily an acquisition. So it is more a way for Intuitive to keep abreast of what is going on in the marketplace, really understand where transformation is happening in the big disease areas where they're present and not present today, and use that as a vehicle for understanding it. I think when you're taking your venture firm as um, just a feeder for acquisition, usually that means that you have a general manager that is interested in that idea. So you're within the next 5 years, right? You're not having that long view because the GM is looking at his 5-year P&L, sometimes 7 years, right? You go to the strategic plan, the long range planning is usually 7, 10 max. We're looking at it more holistically speaking. And so that's where the key differentiator is. Because of that, we have a different measuring stick, which is return on investment in addition to strategic value.
Okay. So those are your two primary success criteria.
Correct.
Yes. And so the return on investment, relatively standard. On the strategic side, how do you look at success in that through that zone?
So we have an investment committee, which is composed of the exec chair of Intuitive. We have independent representation as well from institutional investors, and I would say board level and ELT level former employees that helps assess for each and every investment that we make how strategic that is and if it fits into our long-term view. So it is not a it's not a one static view of point of view. It's really an evolving view of the market and what is strategic for us or not on the long term.
That's a lot of stakeholders that you have to engage with.
Mm.
So, maybe turning towards the future, are there particular areas in medtech that you're especially excited about right now?
Well, there's quite a few, I would say. I
Okay.
mean, as we look at what is going on in the world, we have an aging population, and that is translating into obviously certain disease areas that are growing 15-20% a year organically. So that's one trend that we're looking at carefully. What does it mean? It means that from a health system standpoint, we have to treat differently. So you overlay then AI to that, where we're starting to have a lot of data, and for us, so when I look at the intersection of both, we're looking at big diseases where there's organic growth, and where we can start thinking about the continuous intelligence of treating, right? So starting from diagnostics, going down to treatment and monitoring. So it's really the episode of care in one. So what does it mean from an investment standpoint? So it means that that I'm looking at. I'm very excited in neurovascular, cardiac. I mean, all the usual suspect, I will say. But I'm looking at it from a closed loop system standpoint. Are they solutions that are looking at diagnosing and treating and monitoring at the same time and being able to go down to precision at the patient level so that's where we have Amber Therapeutics and 12 or 2 neuromod investments that we made in Fund 2 that reflects that trend. Another area I'm really, really excited about is with this aging population and patient needed to be treated, there is really a rebalancing of treatment in hospital and treatment that are in outpatient settings. And so looking at the intersection of hardware, software, and analytics that enable the movement towards these outpatient settings, and what are the new technologies that enable that unlock as well is another area where we're evaluating quite a bit of technologies.
Right. Yeah, closed loop is definitely one of those areas that you hear quite a bit about, and that ability to sort of have individualized diagnosis and treatment. And if you're able to do it successfully, probably marries quite well with the other aspect that you're interested in, which is outpatient care or
Mhm.
keeping patients out of the hospital. It's a great combination.
Yeah. Thank you.
So I wanted to know in terms of advice, and you've been giving a lot of tremendous advice. But if you were to give a couple of pieces of advice to builders and entrepreneurs who are in fundraising mode right now, what would you tell them?
Yeah. So the first thing is for you know it's about patience and grit, right? So you have a vision, make sure that you can realize it. The world is getting more complex, not less, and you have to have resilience, right? The Omari, you're an entrepreneur yourself, so you know what it takes. We discuss about that 11-year. It takes a lot of time. There will be setbacks, so keep your passion, add resilience to it, and be ready to go for the long haul. Surround yourself early with advisors that are experienced in the area that you're looking at innovating. And here I'm not talking only key opinion leaders, but actually experienced entrepreneurs that have lived through the journey. That's really important. It is a model that we see a lot in Europe of the sort of the chair to a CEO. That's one I actually really like because I think it really helps, especially first time CEOs, to see around the corners quicker and with less dollar burn, if you will. So um, be passionate, be persistent, have grit, and eventually, things will naturally happen.
Yeah, and that actually brings up one other related question. It kind of circles back to where we started the conversation, which is you have this global experience, and you mentioned that as part of it, it helps you connect very well with European based companies and US based companies. Are there typical differences that you see between the two? You mentioned one, which is perhaps European companies have a tendency to have more of a board chair structure. Are there other differences that you see between the two? Generally speaking?
I see US CEO be more optimistic, shall we say, than from the way they think about their vision. The other place where I see a difference is in Europe. The especially the first time CEOs think they understand the US market. It is an incredibly complex one. And that's one where that's where frankly, we can be quite helpful, but there are other funds as well that do that. Is surround yourself by funds that understand the US market, live and breathe the US market. It is going to be about 45% of your top line revenue. And so being able to understand the difference um, and really thinking about how you're going to win in that market is key for success. US is the market to go to first and foremost. So when we look at our entrepreneurs, we advise them strongly to go first to the US and then consider Europe second. Yes. And I would say in addition to MDR, there's a whole AI overlay in Europe that has yet to be defined. So I would say, though I'm French and I want to see innovation coming to Europe, right now the structure is such that it's incredibly hard to navigate for entrepreneurs. And that's really like I'm pleading because we should have a better structure
Yes. And
for so that innovation can get to market in there as well.
we'll keep certainly keep our eyes on the progress there. And to your point, it would be great if we could have, almost a universal regulatory path to a certain extent, especially as it applies to AI, to allow these companies to have clarity as they look through their commercial plans. So,
That would be
well,
ideal. I look forward to seeing you do that, Omari.
I've got some time next week. Well, this has just been a wonderful conversation. Really enjoyed it. really enjoyed your perspective and your guidance and your advice for entrepreneurs. And it's very clear that you really do enjoy helping entrepreneurs through the progress, through the process. And I also just say congratulations on what's been a tremendous start to Intuitive Ventures. I think it's been about 6 years now since the fund first launched, and you're having a tremendous positive impact on the ecosystem.
Thank you. We look forward to continue to do that. So, and you can hold me accountable to that.
Well, maybe we'll have you back on and check in over some time.
Sounds great.
Well, thank you for joining us on Powering the Future Within. If this conversation inspired you, follow the show and share it with your MedTech community. I'm Omari Balknight. Stay inspired and keep innovating.